In the Central Highlands of Victoria grows the tallest flowering plant on the planet, the giant mountain ash. These ancient trees contain the highest known carbon stores on record, are vital homes for rare species, and are the main catchments that give Melbourne its natural drinking water. But these grand trunks also supply an intergenerational timber and paper industry that supports many families and rural communities. And while the Victorian Government's Leadbeater's Possum Advisory Group says it has reached a balance, the battle for the ash forests is far from over. In the last 40 years, 50% of these forests have already been logged, and many believe that without a more drastic reduction, both the forests and the industry are heading towards total collapse. Now a new debate over economics is leading both conservationists and the timber industry to decide the true value of the mountain ash treasury. In the heart of the Central Highlands, in the picturesque forests of Toolangi, campaigners have teamed up to promote the creation of a new national park.
These trees are existing on the theoretical limit of how tall a tree can be. For years now, state governments, both coalition and Labor governments, have said, well, we can work out certain rules by which we can have both logging in state forests and maintain the populations of Leadbeater's possum, but experience is showing that it just isn't happening. The logging has continued and we're losing Leadbeater's possums. So now we've come to a point where we see the only real solution would be to keep logging out of what remains of these state forests. And the way we see of doing that is to declare the area as a Great Forest National Park.
Just over 1% of unburnt and unlogged forest remains. So that's a tiny amount, and there would have been about 60 to 70% of the forest estate actually having old trees in their stands, but we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a radical transformation of the landscape.
I believe the Great Forest National Park will only benefit Leadbeater ecotours, and I think the Great Forest National Park will also bring other ecotourism operators into the area as well. And it's really important that these operators come into the area. There's a huge flow-on benefit to the wider economy.
But others say that a national park would have a devastating effect on regional jobs and businesses.
National parks, by nature of the way they are, do not allow business development. The problem in this area and in this region with a national park is that it will force the timber industry to cease existence.
There's a figure in excess of 2,000 direct jobs and 10,500 indirect jobs would be impacted if there was to be any change to timber harvesting in the Central Highlands.
And half of those jobs are located at the Maryvale pulp mill, which uses mountain ash fibre to create photocopy paper.
There's 1,000 people employed at Maryvale. What can we do about that? Well, we need that mill. We need an Australian-made product, and we understand that. But there is a vast plantation resource in Victoria, the largest of any states, which is available to bring to the AP mill, to the Australian paper mill.
In terms of the timber coming out of the forests from our operations, you're looking at about 30% being saw log and 70% being pulp log. But the trick to that is you can't get that 30% saw log without also producing the 70% pulp log.
Many argue that the remaining mountain ash assets are worth far more to the economy as expanded water catchments and carbon stores.
There is approximately 200 hectares harvested within the catchment areas each year. They are some of the most high-yielding forests that we work in. They're producing very high-quality timber, and they're a really important part of what we do.
But desalination and pipeline methods to replace the water lost through logging are expensive.
For the first time you can put a price on or a value on water for the first time ever. They're able to do it and say, right, well, this is how much logging industry's worth. This is what's going to cost to replace the water that we lose as a result of that industry.
And some believe that the carbon accounting possibilities in Victoria's mountain ash forests could be worth millions.
Between 1,500 to 2,000 tonnes of carbon have been found in some areas on some sites.
The carbon's not just sort of being thrown away. It's still in the process chain, shall we say.
If you log them, you release that carbon. Most of the product goes into short-term products like paper, which is then either dumped or burned within a couple of years, and that carbon then goes back into the atmosphere.
But for now, the Victorian government says it has reached a balance through the recommendations of its Leadbeater's Possum Advisory Group.
For us, there will be an estimated 5% reduction in yield because of the changes which are coming in as part of the advisory group. The important thing to note is that's in addition to a 25% reduction which Vic Forest announced last year ourselves.
Industry's already been prepared to say, okay, there's an issue here and we'll deal with it because we want an industry longer term and a sustainable industry.
Now, they've talked about reductions further into the future, but they're really necessary reductions that have been imposed upon them because of the fires and just through the availability of yield. But we're talking not just the supply of timber and pulp, we're talking about the protection of other values. So we're looking at a drastic reduction in yield as a result. Now, the industry will not like that. That will not be conducive to government policy. That's why government policy has to change.
So until Victorians go to the polls in November, the battle will continue over the true value of the mountain ash treasury.